What's up, guys? So a big balance update just came out with a massive nerf to rogue players, but there is a small buff. But don't get too excited about the buff for rogue players. But starting right off, this just got posted. This is from Pez Radar over here on the official forums. But there are also secret patch notes that I do want to go over, so make sure you guys watch all of the video to understand all of these changes, because some of them, they're officially posted, some of these, we're getting our data from other sources. So, starting right off, what are the changes with the game? So, the Sorcerer has a very small change. This is a nerf to people that would do some snapshotting. So, what are the changes with the Sorcerer? So, as far as the Sorcerer goes, what you're seeing is the Flame Shield enchantment. So, it actually got a nerf. It says, when Flame Shield is initially equipped onto an enchantment slot, it's placed on full cooldown. What this means is you can no longer be playing on hardcore, or if you're like, oh, I'm about to die, go throw on that enchantment on Flame Shield so I can get that cheat death. That will no longer work because it's going to start its entirety of the cooldown, and it's going to basically not let you snapshot. I feel like it was a skill issue thing. If you're able to snapshot and throw on Flame Shield right before you die and then you can prevent death, that was a skill thing, but nonetheless, that is a nerf definitely for sorcerers. Also, what you're seeing in the background for gameplay is corpse flipping, and you're seeing this on the review copy of the game, which did work. This actually got stealth nerfed as well. There was an official announcement of some of these changes. That's why we're making this video. But this right here is an official change that we can actually see. So the next change over here is Rogue with Inner Sight. This over here is a massive nerf. You can see one person that commented over here says, why kill rogue like this? Inner Sight feels terrible now. This is a huge nerf, and it makes me super sad because that's the class I started out with, and this was a phenomenal skill to have as a class specialization for most of the people playing with, of course, twisting blades. You would have these projectiles come out. So with Inner Sight, after Inner Sight's unlimited energy expires, there's a 4-second delay before you can use another enemy that gets marked to actually hit. So what this means is you can't have a bunch of spinning blades going around when the effect ends and then start almost getting maybe about halfway or 1/3 towards your next Inner Sight unlimited energy. This is a massive nerf to rogues for bosses, and it makes me kind of sad because that was one thing I felt like rogue did better than any class, was being able to sustain themselves on bosses for resource. So again, this is a huge nerf to rogue. But while the other one I can kind of understand because it's like a snapshot, it's probably not intended to work like that. This is huge. This is like one of the best things that rogue had, and it's no longer existing for bosses. It's a massive nerf though. This is the biggest change that we're seeing in this patch notes. It's a massive nerf though. If you played rogue, you know what I'm talking about. How do you feel about that? I'm curious. Are you guys going to be re-rolling? Because I've heard some people being really upset about this, and some people understand that it was kind of OP, but it's what made rogue good, right? Now, this next one up is kind of a strange one. So this makes it so the shout skill cooldown reduction no longer applies to being effective on items. It no longer appears on items. So what does this mean? Did anyone actually get any items that have shout cooldown reduction? If so, what happens to them? Do they get deleted? Does the affix no longer appear on the item? Or does that mean anyone that has them, if you have these could be a legacy version of an item that could be worth a lot. If you play Diablo 3, you know that there are certain items that can no longer drop with certain abilities in the game because the game just doesn't allow it. And if you have those items, they're worth a lot. So my suggestion is, if you have any of these shout items, they could be worth a lot. It needs to be item power at least 725 though, just as a heads up, because otherwise it's not really viable for endgame. But getting that could be a huge thing. If you guys have seen some Barbarian videos where they're basically uptime for any of the shouts is 100%. If you've seen any shouts to Rob, he's a really good Barbarian player. There's so many videos of him just upkeeping everything, and this could be something that is required, and this could be a huge nerf to Barbarians for 100% uptime on any of these shouts. But you guys let me know how you feel about that one. I mean, yeah, it is definitely a pretty big nerf to Barbarians as well. If you want to keep up all of your shouts up, that might not be as viable unless you get your skills to be a very high tier, but nonetheless, that is a change. Now, this one is going to affect all players. So monster health values have been increased in the later world tiers. So basically that means the game's harder, essentially. And this is something that does factor in, especially if you are kind of more squishy character, because the enemies are going to be stronger. It just means the game's going to be more difficult. And what does that mean for people that already completed the, capstone and stuff? It's going to be a little bit more difficult, potentially, if you did your capstone a little bit too early. Now, there's a few other set of changes here. These are going to be non-official, but they're on Wildhead. A lot of these are going to be data mined. These are just numerical stats, so we can go over these rapid fire really quick. So this is for all characters. There's a legendary aspect where it's called accelerating aspect, where our crit strikes with core skills increase our attack speed by 15 to 25%, and it used to last for 3 seconds, now it's 5 seconds. Now with the Barbarian legendary aspect, we actually got a buff with Barbarian. So it says, lucky hit, while Call of the Ancients is on your action bar, when you damage enemies with leap, upheaval, or woven, you have up to a 40 to 50% chance to summon an ancient to perform the same skill. And it used to say can happen once every 5 seconds, but with no internal cooldown, you can get a lot more. So that's a buff to Barbarian. I'm not sure if that's going to be mattering for a lot of builds. Most endgame builds are like Thorns or like Whirlwind, but nonetheless, that's a buff. Druid, lucky hit chance buff on Cataclysm by an additional 10%, and the storm that follows you lasts for 10 seconds instead of 8, so buff over there. Petrify used to stun enemies for 3 seconds, and now it's 3.75, so that's a buff with Druids. And against bosses, it used to be 6 seconds, and now it is 7.5, with the bonus crit strike damage that it does provide. Then with Grizzly Rage, we have the Shapeshift lasting an extra 2 seconds, so that's going to be another buff to Druid. And then with Lacerate, we have a change where we go into a werewolf, and then we get to become immune, and we dash 12 times. It's kind of like 7-sided strike if you played Diablo 3. So it has a duration that's going to last longer, but because it hits 12 times instead of 10, but it deals 500% damage instead of 400. So that's a 100% bonus buff, so that would be overall considered a buff to the Lacerate ability. Now, what is Rogue's buff? Okay, because that's a massive nerf, right? Did we get something better? Well, dash forward and slash enemies for 36% damage. That's the buff that we got with Rogue. This actually happened, I believe, this is the day 1 or day 0 patch. The other patch notes, like this one for the hotfix, this just happened today. This one, I believe, happened on the launch of the game yesterday. Okay, just as a heads up, just for clarification. These did not get changed today, but yesterday when the game came out for the, like, you know, deluxe edition. Next up, though, Golem. Necromancer got buffed. So the Golem passive over here, where we are protected by a Golem, the Golem does 4% more damage, so it's a buff. Okay, you'll take it. The Golem used to shed corpses, and now it absorbs 15% of the damage you would take and recovers life when attacking. So that's a nice little buff overall. Kind of a nerf if you need the corpses. Then on top of that, for the active ability of Golem, it used to have the effect of it became unstoppable and taunts nearby enemies and takes 30% reduced damage. So it no longer taunts enemies and it gives you that damage reduction. But on top of that, it drains the blood of enemies in the area, and that is going to make it so it deals 40% of the damage and heals 4% of its life for each enemy drained, and then damage and healing received are tripled if only one enemy is drained. So I guess more damage is going to be more viable for bosses. Now, another thing that I want to mention, because it was in one of my videos that I recently dropped, and I'm not ever going to try to give you guys wrong information, but that was the review copy of the game, and what you guys are seeing is what's called corpse flipping, and I was doing this consistently, and you could get legendaries very, very easy. If you guys remember, even on the server slam, this was an area where we can just click on a corpse. We would go to specifically Core Dragon, and I told you guys, don't complete your Core Dragon because you could just flip up corpses and get legendaries. It was one of the best routes. There's a lot of other YouTubers that made videos on it. Now, on the review copy, it works, so I was telling you guys, don't complete Core Dragon. Now, don't even worry about it, you can complete it. You can, however, still go to the area early and still get a item that is a level 30 item, and you can essentially equip it at level like 20-ish. And so it's still kind of viable to do, but it's not like a really good farm route anymore. So just as a heads up, that got stealth nerfed. This is not mentioned in the patch notes or on like the hotfix over here. As far as I'm aware of, that has not been officially announced. Another thing that wasn't officially announced but did get changed that is actually a pretty big deal is the aspects. So one thing to mention here, I was telling you guys, never ever sell your legendaries. The reason why is it's a waste of gold. If you go extract your aspect, you can actually sell the item for way, way more. So I think this item, it sold for like 38,000 gold. But if I extracted the aspect, I could resell the item for 100,000. Now, if you try to sell an aspect, it sells for 35 gold. So what does that mean? That means that if you want to min-max on gold, you can just sell your legendary, or you can just disenchant it if you want to. But do not think that you're going to get more gold anymore because you extract it and then you just sell the imprint. So do not do that anymore. It's not going to be viable. And like I already mentioned before, corpse flipping, the Core Dragon, lots of YouTubers have been talking about this because it worked, okay? It honestly worked in the review copy. that we had so we can give you guys all the info and make guides and stuff, yeah, that no longer works. So feel free to complete all of your strongholds. As far as I'm aware of, there is no other like corpse flipping methods that do work. Maybe it's in a certain area that has not been changed, but the cordial god one specifically, I was testing it yesterday, it's definitely nerfed. You could still get items, but overall it's not worth it. So anyways, those are the brand new patch updates. Let me know guys how you feel about it. I think Rogue took the biggest L, but Barbarian did take a pretty big nerf because the shouts are what makes Barbarian super powerful in group play, and if you don't reach the cooldown reduction, sometimes if you play Diablo 3, you know that a downtime of 2 to 3 seconds sometimes could be the difference between surviving something and, you know, you're not taking that extra huge amount of damage that you would have been taking. But let me know guys' thoughts on this update. Anyways, that's gonna go wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, subscribe to the bell if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.